Well, hello everyone. This is your boy Frenchie, filling in the shoes for John. John's birthday today, so want to give him a day off. I am here with my man Don, aka Jedi Master Thuck, and we are here to talk about video games that need to be made into TV series. We saw Last of Us as a proof that you can adapt video games to TV shows. So we're exploring what else can you do? Where do you go from here? So let's sit back and have some fun. Hello, yo. Like I said, my
How
name
we
is
doing?
Frenchie. Anyway, my man Don from Motivation Geekdom. Thank you so much for being and accepting last minute to help me with this concept. We
No,
got
not a problem.
We got nine TV shows to propose. Things that
Yes.
I personally think is well overdue because we saw from a very long get go, video games and movies isn't effy. It's the Mortal Kombat kind
Yeah.
of works. Assassin's Creed was
Mm.
Warcraft was but adapting the TV shows makes some more sense in my opinion. Last of Us, perfect example. Although I wasn't the biggest fan of the first
Yes.
episode, I saw the potential.
Sure.
But where do we go from now? From here, right? Because streaming services need properties. I mean, they're the perfect example of you can get a franchise and expand it, and don't have to spend the big bucks like in a movie. You can make something look good and not necessarily have like the $200 million budgets, and that's perfect for video games,
Sure.
right? So my first
Yeah.
choice, we'll start with mine. By the way, John couldn't make it, but it's something he wanted to talk about. So we also have John's picks. We're also going to talk
Hmm.
about. And now we're in nine choices. We're going to try to do that the fastest possible because there's a lot of content to fucking talk about.
Sure. Oh
All
yeah.
right. So my first choice is, I think the most. It wouldn't feel like a video game because it is a video game that doesn't feel like a video game, and that is Red Dead Redemption. And
Sure.
I would see it on HBO Max. For me, even though there's sci-fi elements, they showed me that they can do Western with Westworld.
Hmm.
Westworld was such an interesting, especially two first seasons when they really went Western. It felt so interesting. Like the ambiance of like the Western parts of it was so like well done, right? That being said, you translate it into a pure Western story. That again, the video game, I forgot I was playing a video game. It felt like it was in a Western movie, right?
Oh,
And
for
that for
sure.
me translates perfectly to a streaming service because she has so much potential to either follow the video game storyline or to expand into it. But we're missing some. I love westerns. I haven't seen much because there's not that many good movies out there anymore. A lot more
Sure.
TV shows, which I need to catch up on. But still, that there's a missing market for that, and I think the translation to that game, the ambiance, the all the stock it brought right could translate perfectly to streaming services. What do you think, Don?
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. Um, if you guys didn't already pick Red Dead, I would have definitely picked this as one of mine because I love the first game. I love the second game. I think the story is good enough, and I think they could do it. Yeah, I think they could pull it off for sure. If they get the right writers and director together and really sink their teeth into it, man, I think it could be something really fun for sure. And it has to be on HBO Max, like you said. It has to be.
Yeah, it's you need
That's
that big budget feel, right? That HBO Max does so well with like
mhm.
with Game of Thrones and Westworld. And there's something so bigger than life that I think this game needs. Even though it's so grounded, it
Mhm.
still needs this bigger than life feel to it because it's such a grandiose story, right? Very
Mhm.
simplistic if you think about it, especially the first one, but it's still a very cinematic, grandiose epic that we
Yeah.
haven't seen in a long time, especially in westerns. So the
Well, and
only
they
thing
could they could actually. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, no, go ahead, then.
And I was just going to say the only thing that they could actually play with in a series that actually I think might actually work is so in the game, when you're playing the game, there are times when you have to go on the run or you're on the run from certain people. They could sort of make each one of those missions almost like a season within itself, and then you're on the run for the beginning of the next season, and then you cause another problem. And they could actually use that really well for a series.
The one thing, like, and I agree, like a mission could be a season, or at least like 2 missions in a season, right? Especially if you're like a 10 episode run, 5 episodes
Yeah.
a mission, the other episode a mission. Well, the only thing I'm not sure how they would approach is, do you make the first game a couple seasons and then you touch on the second game a couple seasons after? Do you not even touch a second game? Do you create a whole different? Do you mash up the two storylines into one character? That's the thing. Like both games don't follow necessarily each other. They're in the same realm, but they're not the same people.
Yes.
So it really, it depends like how you would take that. It's like The Walking Dead, in a sense that they took the story, but they went a whole different direction. They took some characters, modified other characters, and just adapted to their own parallel universe of Walking Dead. Do you go that route and combine both games into making one character, or do you just do a separation of once a couple seasons is the first game, second game is a couple seasons after?
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe almost like an anthology, especially if there's another one coming at some point. Maybe you do like first 2 seasons is the first one, then the second 2 seasons the second one, with the new character. And then the third season might be the same character or another new character, and maybe or season 5. So yeah, I mean they could definitely do it. I do think that is one though that needs to be made into a series because it is a really good story.
It's only a question of time. I'm sure there's already stuff in pre-production no one knows about, except for the inside people. But it's one of those properties that if they don't make a fucking show, they're dumb. They're dumb. Like it's in their hands. It's gold right there to be mined.
Sure.
It's such a popular game. And when I asked the question in the group I'm in, they're like, hey, like I'm doing this this episode about this. Someone right away wrote Red Dead Redemption. I'm not the only one. People are clamoring for this property to be turned into a show. So it's only a question of time. All right, let's go ahead and talk about your first pick, Mr. Don. What is your pick?
Sure. So for HBO Max, I went with a game that I grew up playing. The game that I think got shafted by Xbox as being the star of Xbox, and that is Gears of War. I mean, just talk about something that could be absolutely beautiful on screen if they do it right. The chainsaw battles, the close quarter shotgun battles. I mean, we could get some really gory stuff and really fun stuff. But the story is good enough, I think, to translate to a show if they adapt it right.
And that's what I was going to ask, because I played, I think, the first one. I don't remember the mythology, the lore. Like, how deep is the content for it to be not just a one shot, for it to be like a couple seasons long? Is there enough to actually do a long stretch with Gears of War?
I think so, because when you get into the other games, there's a lot of stuff as far as Marcus's background, that he's connected to the Locust in certain ways.
Okay.
And so yes, you could do that. So yeah, there's definitely enough there, I think. Yeah.
Would you?
Because there's a lot of politics too that is in the storyline also that they could really mess with too. So
interesting. And would you follow A to Z the storyline, or would you modify it to change with the times or the format, or would you strictly go with what the video game does?
I think that's a game that you have to sort of take the spirit of the game and sort of write the story around what is already there. Because I don't know if the game itself, like you said, straightforward, translate that way. But if you weave the story in correctly and you cast right, and I think you can do it for sure.
And I forgot to talk about this in the first one. And I know it's fantasy casting will never happen, but I would see Keanu Reeves playing the main character because I would love to see him. He looks like the character. I would love to see him in a Western, something we've never seen. Idea. Who do you think could play a perfect main character for Gears of War?
For Gears, That's a good question. I think Marcus is who I would obviously want to cast. I mean, I don't know if he would want to do it, obviously, but if he would bulk up, I tell you who I think could do it is Hugh Jackman. He could pull
Okay.
that off. He could definitely pull off Marcus, I think, for sure.
So with his acting chops getting better and better, I actually see Batista playing him.
That's not a bad pick. That's not a bad pick, honestly.
Like you can see he's getting better and better, and he fits an action genre. He definitely needs to break out more and more. I see him going in that direction of a sci-fi action, but a brutal R-rated one, not like Guardians of the Galaxy. Something he can really dive into the darker, more morbid stuff. You know?
Yeah, I just watched Glass Onion, man. He's funny. He's getting better. He's definitely getting better, man.
His timing got better. It's not just he got funny. He's like he naturally feels much more polished at the moment he needs to feel more polished.
Sure.
All right,
I agree. Yeah.
Let's go into John's first pick for Amazon Prime, and that is a franchise I don't know much about. I've heard so many things. Never played it because I suck at those kind of games because I don't even pass the first level. It's Metal Gear Solid.
Yes.
Which I've heard so many times that it would be an amazing, amazing show. I've also heard, though, that game is so out of the box kooky. Yes. What the fuck is happening? I think only a Japanese iteration could actually translate. I love his pick. I just don't understand how it translates into American viewership.
Yeah. It's more of an anime, I think, adaptation.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because Japanese adapted, you know, but American TV show or like a North American, I want to see it. It would be interesting, but how do you pull off that kind of kooky?
Yeah,
and still, have the seriousness that's not like out of the box. What the fuck is happening in Japanese shows?
Oh, dude! I mean, there's a Metal Gear Solid game where you're going around in a jungle and you're using alligator skins as like camouflage, and it gets crazy. Even more than that, there's Gundams and there's crazy stuff. Yeah,
I remember far back in my reasons of my memory, there's even one of the villains that get naked at one point and walking around.
Basically, yeah,
and walking around covering his private parts is like. Okay, again, how do you translate that into? Again, it's sometimes the wildest ideas, given in the right showrunner's hands,
sure,
would work. Like I'm watching a show right now. Like it shouldn't work. It's so dialed down but kooky at the same time, just the right spots. It's Atlanta. Shouldn't work because it has such an offbeat, flavor to it. But at the same time, it works because the I forgot his real name.
I haven't watched it. I'm not sure.
But the guy who did This Is America.
Donald Glover.
Yeah, him.
Okay,
he's such an offbeat character himself that it works. It translates, right? And he's the producer, the director, and everything. He created the whole damn thing. So it really will depend on the fit of the showrunner, the creator. But again, it's to find that fit, find that flavor. I just see it.
It's going to be
hard
tough.
Time translating that.
That one, yes. Because there would be a lot of work to do to make that series make sense. A lot of work.
Oh yeah. All right, let's go in with my second choice, and this is something I don't understand how this hasn't been made yet. Maybe because again, it's. Warcraft was maybe not a flop, but a failed experiment in what they were going for the popularity in box office. But I think what translates so much better in TV show is StarCraft. How I see StarCraft is take in the old school. What the fuck is the name of the old movie with the bugs? Starship Trooper.
Yeah. Okay.
Take that feeling of Starship Trooper with less a bit of the kookiness, but the Zerg. That's the bugs from Starship Trooper, and you got also the other species. I forgot. You have a storyline with 3 species going at it. you can have almost a Game of Thrones element of like power and trying to,
Sure.
inner politics mixed in with Starship Trooper, and that would make an awesome fucking sci-fi TV show that could, really benefit from today's day and age of sci-fi graphics or special effects, but really play on again the inner politics of inner relationships of trying to cohabitate with a very dangerous and violent, hungry species, and a species that is so weird and so detached from what humans are, that do you really trust them? Because you kind of have to, but at what point? At what
Yeah.
extent do you trust? So there's so much things they can
Sure.
play on. There's a bit of story in the game, right? But that's one of those games that you would have to really create like they did in Warcraft, create a brand new storyline, adapted to what makes sense, even though the movie didn't really make sense personally, and go off of that. But the elements would still stay StarCraft, and I see it working. How do you find about that?
Yeah, this game I don't know much about. I do know a little bit about it. I didn't play it. But yeah, I mean, I think if they can like you said, I think it would take the right translation of the story over to screen, because it's tough when you're doing something like that, because that's like a turn-based game, right? Almost.
It is a turn-based game. It
Yeah.
definitely is a turn-based game. But
See, maybe if
again,
they played with that element somehow in the
well,
game or in the show.
I actually thought about that too, and probably the closest thing you can get to a turn-based TV show is having one episode of humans, one episode of Zergs, one episode of Proteins, I think,
Sure.
and have like an episode per viewpoint. The thing is, usually streaming services only have what 8 to 12 episodes,
Right.
so we really need to have a condensed, almost movie-like per episode.
Yeah.
Will that work? I don't know, but it probably is the way to go if we're really thinking about turn-based, and every perspective has their own narrative. I wouldn't, and maybe at the end converging, the last 2 episodes converging all 3 points of view when they actually go to war in an all-out war, but having that buildup of one perspective per episode until the big climax would probably be the best direction.
Yeah, kind of like House of Dragon did it, where they showed the one perspective of from Casterly Rock? No, the main city. You know what I mean. And then the other was from her point of view on what they were doing over there, so at Dragonstone. So yeah, that would be cool. That's actually not a bad idea.
As long as you don't do a time jump like House of Dragons, because I was so
confused. Oh yeah, no.
That was like, what's happening? The actors don't even look alike.
Right. No, I mean just show each faction strategizing up to the point of the war, and then the climax is the war, like you said. Yeah, them all meeting. Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And visually, again, like we're at this point that anything is possible. And before we would have done like StarCraft, StarCraft's such a specific visuals that like before, like let's say it would have been done in 2000s or early 90s or even 2010s, CGI was only still getting better, and it would probably just look weird at one point, even though a Starship Trooper kind of still works in my mind, if it's really 90s or bad sci-fi.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's a fun movie. It's still such a fun movie. Yeah,
but you can still have that, for me, Starship Trooper flavor into because again, since Starship Trooper, like the sequels we don't talk about, but Starship Trooper, there's nothing that's been like it. Something so gruesome, but at the same time, it's there for shock value.
Yeah.
But it was so corny. Like there's such a contrast into the flavor and the feeling of it that it worked. You were laughing, and then next you see someone getting ripped in half and guts everywhere, and one of the good characters get completely destroyed in the most horrific way. Like, am I watching a comedy or a fucking disaster?
Right. Yeah.
And we haven't seen anything like that since, or in my opinion. So having that into a video game, hard R translation in not just 2 hours, but like 8 to 10 hours to 12 hours of this, for me, that's a win.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, it sounds like a good idea. I like it. I definitely like that idea.
All right, on to your next one.
Yep. So I have another crazy one, I think. So the reason
I
I
have
thought of
thoughts on
this,
it. I have
yeah.
thoughts on it.
So this is what I thought about this. I was thinking you throw Amazon money at James Cameron and have him do an underwater show. And what is the best game to portray that? Subnautica. Subnautica. Now, I will admit the story is not the greatest in this game, so there would be some writing that would have to take place. But the premise of the game, I think, if they kept that intact and really kept that beautifulness of the being underwater, and it could really be a fun like survival type show.
The first thing when you said Subnautica, at first I was like, really? But then the thoughts of having a feeling of almost a Castaway.
Yeah, right.
Having Castaway into a TV show in the waters, and
Yes.
him trying to survive, and him like everything's going wrong. Like you would have only again one character, and I don't know, a scuba dive fucking mask as Wilson, something.
Yeah, right.
Maybe
right.
not that much on the nose.
You can have
but
so much
having
fun.
that Castaway feel to it.
Yep.
Only thing is, how far do you push it for? Like that concept is good for 4 or 5 episodes.
Yes.
Then you would need another narrative. But again, the game, you only have one character, one person. There's nothing else, right?
Well, and that's where I think if they got the right writers and they expanded on the mythology of the game, there is actually a story there. But the game isn't made for the story. It just isn't. It's made for you to just swim around and build stuff in underwater. It's supposed to look cool. So if they could get the right writers, I think they could expand it out. Now again, how many seasons does it go? I don't know. We don't know. So.
And you would need to cast someone who would, like, again, Tom Hanks did a great job of portraying someone who was desperate, going slowly crazy, but trying not to lose his humanity. I actually see someone like a Joaquin Phoenix playing this role. We can go.
Oh, that would be awesome.
We can go like trying to fight his tendency to not lose his humanity, and he's probably already crazy to begin with. Man. But how deep end would you go if the only thing you have is trying to survive in the water? So a character actor is needed for this thing to really push it. And for me, Joaquin Phoenix would be a great choice.
That's actually a great choice. I agree with you, especially after the Joker, man. Yeah, seeing him get that skinny and just like that. Yeah, he could definitely pull that off for sure. Absolutely, and the craziness he has. So we already know that.
But again, like, and this bears a question: like, do you first of all? Unless again you really find this twist, this narrative, you can extend it. Subnautica sounds like a really interesting one shot.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
It doesn't sound like something you can do 4 or 5 seasons long, unless you introduce more sci-fi elements on a Lost. I don't know,
right?
But just if you want to keep it as a purely sci-fi, not sci-fi, but more of like a survival-ish sci-fi, that there's no aliens, no monsters, there's no mystery. There's just one guy a la the Martian, one guy trying to survive the whole time. Does he survive at the end? I probably wouldn't. Like the Martian, I would kill him off and be so heart-wrenching, but it's a one-shot story,
Sure.
And you keep it contained, and that's it. Because it's a type of concept that is interesting at first, but if you don't expand it properly in the other seasons, you lose your viewership and you just lose interest.
No, that's fair. Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. I think they could play with the character a little bit, where like maybe the first 2 or 3 episodes is before the ship crashes, and maybe he's already a loner that pushes people away, and then he's stuck on this island and he really does have to be alone, and he's like, oh, this really sucks. And he has to deal with that. Maybe something like that would be fun. But again, like you said, how do you stretch it out to make it more than 1 or 2 seasons at most?
It's unless like at the end of the season he actually finds someone else that's stranded, and then he has to work with. I don't know, but again, I was not expecting that choice, but
Like I
that
said,
being said,
I was thinking Way of Water. What James Cameron just did with water, I just want to see it visually live. I just think it would be so cool to see. That was
agreed.
really more where I was going with it, honestly.
All right, we're going with John's second pick, a game I honestly never heard about. I hope you have any insight because Jesus, this is going to be a short segment. Evil Within. Never heard of this game.
What is it again? Yeah, I don't remember.
Evil Within.
Evil Within. No, that one I haven't heard of actually.
I
I
love you,
don't know that
John.
game. Yeah, that one I don't know, John. Sorry.
I've never heard of it.
I'll be honest.
Never heard of it. It the
Sounds
title
creepy.
sounds cool. It's
Yeah.
probably a horror show. I should have prepared for this one. I'm sorry, John. You're gonna have to jump in at one point next episode just to give the filler.
You got to defend it now. You got to defend it, John.
Yeah, because again, it's one of those games I think I've heard. Let me just evil at least read the synopsis.
Sure.
Okay, The Evil Within is a survival horror game developed by Tango Gameworks and published. Okay, they're not giving the.
So it's probably similar, or not similar, but it's probably in the vein of like Last of Us.
It's
That
a
kind
scavenging game, survival
Yeah.
scavenging game.
Yep.
While investigating, okay, I got the plot. Cool. Yeah, bring that up. Oh, that's a long ass plot. Okay. While investigating the scene of a mass murder at Beacon Mental Hospital, Crimson City Police Detective Sergeant Sebastian Castellanos, his partner Joseph Otta, and police officer Oscar Conley and junior detective Julie Kidman find themselves suddenly thrown into an unreal world after hearing a high-pitched noise. Shortly after this occurs, Sebastian is separated from his partners and forced to flee from a monstrous man wielding a chainsaw. So it almost sounds like Resident Evil meets Silent Hill meets this police story, which
Yeah.
again, never heard of this game, but just with the images it brought when I was trying to describe, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting. Again,
Oh,
we need to
definitely
play
a
the
lot you
video
could do
game.
with it. Yeah, definitely a lot you could do with it. Yeah. Um, Again, though, how much of the story can you pull out? How much mythology can you pull out to extend it to 3, 4 seasons? If it is good,
Well,
So,
while researching it, I think there's at least 3 games, so there's
oh,
probably
okay,
enough to. And again, like especially when it comes to horror stuff, I don't know why it's easier to do. Like again, what Walking Dead did, you take it, but you kind of do it parallel universe. Like you don't have to follow beat by
oh,
beat
sure,
the original storyline. You adapt it to what the what ifs and what could have been, or what the creator kind of regrets he did at first, and like righting the wrongs and in changing the storylines or characters. So there's a lot to be done in
yeah,
it, and with what I read there, you don't have to necessarily follow beat by beat. You just have to keep the essence, and probably still work. Because horror, it's all about the feeling. It's all about
yeah,
the atmosphere, and what can you bring on screen that's going to just give you the fucking EBGBs. Storyline is
oh, yeah,
important, but feeling and circumstances, like the surroundings, is even more important.
sure, yeah, definitely atmosphere. Yeah, I think too, because when you were reading it, it also you said something about stepping into a different world. That kind of reminded me of Stranger Things, also. So maybe a twist like that,
Yep.
you know, something like
Yeah.
that would be nice. So, yeah, no, it definitely sounds interesting. Definitely sounds like something I would be interested in watching for sure.
All right. Well, good pick, John. I saved your choice.
Hey,
Was not sure I was going to be able to talk about it more than 30 seconds. So. All right. So this is going faster than I thought. So, like, and again, I know you have another show at 10, so we're going to try to contain it
no, we got some
before 10
time.
o'clock. That being said, your last choice is going to be controversial for me because I don't necessarily
really?
agree. Oh, yeah. I don't necessarily agree with work, but I can't wait to hear on your point of view and why you chose this. So, what is your next pick, my man?
Yeah, I went with for Netflix, I went with a fantasy show. I think just something straight fantasy, have some fun. Um, I went with Zelda. Um, let's see it in live action. Let's see that story from the beginning. Let's see the gold cartridge in live action. I want to see that storyline, and let's get all the way through to Link. Let's do it. I want to see it.
And here's where I'm torn, because
Okay.
I personally find that it would make a awesome animation game, animation storyline or movie or show, right?
Okay.
Live action, the issue is you have so many style iterations of Mask and Majora, like the more adult and less cartoony to very cartoony and Wind Wakers and all that. I would find it hard to find a balance that would represent all of the Zelda, because Zelda goes into many generations. It's not just the last five,
Oh,
10 years.
sure.
It
Oh,
touches
sure.
many generations, and their version of Zelda, and finding that balance of the perfect Zelda that was going to touch all the fan base and is not animation, which you can kind of blend all the things and all, even a game feel. Majora's Mask is such a dark thing
Oh, yeah.
compared to other things, and much more lighter and it breathes and more colorful.
Yeah.
Finding a common, feel to it, I find would be a hard thing to do.
Okay. I mean, I think what I would do is just make it a more mature tone, just straight through. I wouldn't go too far one way, too far the other way. I would sort of find a little more of a mature tone, sort of, and not quite as violent or as crazy as this, or at least from what I've seen of this, but like they did with The Witcher.
Okay, but you see,
That's sort of where I was kind of thinking of it.
The Witcher only had one tone. Like Witcher is the Witcher,
Oh,
right?
sure.
Witcher's like it's been one thing only, and it's been dark, and it's easy to translate because it's only been one thing. Whereas Zelda, it's been many things. It's
Oh,
been
no, that's
many
true.
stories, and finding also like the perfect story. Like, in which game do you inspire? Like, would you go
Oh, yeah.
into early Zelda games, or would you do an iteration of many? It's like, where's the starting point?
I'm thinking Shadows. Shadows is a good storyline. Um, but yeah, I mean, even like I said, the gold cartridge, man. Going back to Nintendo, the gold
Mm.
cartridge, man. I love that first Zelda game. Love that first Zelda game. So I played that game
We
probably
don't
more
talk.
than any game ever back then.
Zelda 2 does not exist in my books, though. That
Oh,
that was
that's fair. No, that's fair.
that's such an era of a game.
That's fair. Um, yeah, I mean, I think you would have to sort of tell a more linear story throughout it. But again, like I said, some of the darker stuff they do, I think if you lighten it a little, and then some of the more kiddie, childish, playful stuff, if you sort of mature it up a little and you sort of just find that middle ground, I think you could pull it off. Again,
It could.
but again, all of this we know comes down to who do they pick to act, who do they pick to write, who do they pick to direct. I mean,
And that's the other thing that I would find the challenge of, or the challenges past people, because they tried to do a Zelda movie in the past and
yeah,
never
a
came to
few times.
fruition. And I think the
Yeah.
reason why is finding that perfect cast, the play Link and Zelda, that fringes a line between something that's kind of corny but still watchable. Because basically, the guy's dressed as a freaking Christmas elf. Okay, how do you pull off the
Sure.
how do you pull off the costume without like having this cheesy thing that still we take seriously?
Oh no, I would get somebody like Orlando Bloom, like when he played Legolas. Somebody like that. I would have it. Like I said, I would make it more mature, more realistic. I wouldn't have it
Hmm.
as kidful and playful. I would definitely have it more grounded in the real world, and let's tell the story from a grounded point of view.
It's funny. I would actually pick. I forgot the name of the actor, but the actor that just did Elvis.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad pick. Like I said, somewhere because Orlando Bloom was really young. He had that fit. He just looked like an elf. He just
Yeah,
did. He looked perfect. So yeah, if you could find somebody like that around that age range, yeah. Um,
man.
and the other thing I was going to say is um, Peter Jackson. Get him to finally come back and do some more fantasy. Get him to do it.
Does he want, like,
Take it serious. Oh, who knows?
he did
Who knows?
6 fantasy films?
Yeah, who knows? Well, it's a different world. It's a different story. Maybe he wants to think, just a different storyline. But
True.
even if it's not him, somebody like that, somebody that knows that world and plays in that world, I think is the better way to go with it. Yeah.
Agreed. All right, so on to my last pick. Something that it took time for me to polish the idea because at first, on paper, we've already seen it. It's kind of fun, but it loses its charm after a while, especially with the bad taste of the original movie. But I would love to see in an animated form on Netflix a anthology series about Street Fighter, and you do it like 6 episodes per season into one point of view in one of the timelines of the game. Go out of Street Fighter 2, people. Let's do something that will touch the other parts of the universe of Street Fighter. And like my idea for the first season is to have the POV of Bison between the ending of Street Fighter 2 and sorry, my cat is hungry apparently. Between the ending of Street Fighter 2 and the beginning of Street Fighter 3, like what led him to re-rise in the power after defeat and show a more human side to Bison, the struggles of defeat and the anger inside him, and what brought him to retry to have the world domination. Stuff like that, right? And just bring more personal, not just like the tournament, the fighting, the this. Yes, fighting is part of the Street Fighter, but dive into character work and change that point of view every season that don't necessarily follow all the way through season by season. Might be confusing at first, but those who get anthology will get what they're trying to do, you know?
Sure. Yeah, it's very interesting only because I've seen Mortal Kombat fail so many times, and there's one good version of Mortal Kombat other than the first movie, which, you know, it's a cheesy movie, but I love it. But there's a legacy series. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like 2 or 3 seasons. It was like fan made almost.
Yeah, like the really like live action, right?
Yeah, but it's super dark and super gritty, and they really like try to ground the powers and why they have the powers and stuff. So yeah, if they could really pull something off like that would be fun. The only thing I was going to ask you with what you were saying with coming from different angles each season, different character perspectives each season, do you lead up to the big tournament?
No,
no. Okay.
You can have a season about the tournament. It's like but the purpose of Street Fighter is to show like a different side that we haven't seen. It's not just about the tournament. Sure. It's about these characters that, you know, have their own storylines, have their own points of view across multiple games. I mean, Ryu on Street Fighter 1, for fuck's sakes, or 2, it's not the same Ryu as Street Fighter 4, you know?
Not at all, yeah.
It's a different mature character, and having, you know, seeing a older Ryu and kind of not going away from always the Street Fighter 2 that we always see is interesting. Or hell, I would kill to have a one season to understand what the fuck Blanca is, you know?
Right, yeah, right.
And see the man underneath the beast and almost have like a different flavor for every season. You have that old school Universal monster movie feel to the Blanca storyline. You have this unhinged, almost like psychological thriller for the Bison season that you can see that his intentions are good. Like it's always the best bad guys. They think they're doing the right thing. Yeah, showing that not just I'm bad, you know, but understanding his reasoning behind. So by doing an anthology series, you're not stuck trying to tie in everything and always coming back to the Ryu and Ken storyline because they're the main characters. Yeah. You detach from that. You detach completely from that, and you just make the POV character the main star and dive into that. I find would be a lot more interesting than trying to do what has been done with Street Fighter in this the animated movie, couple like the shorts and stuff like that. It's cool, but give us something new.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean that sounds awesome to me, man. I would love to see them finally do something like this right, because I was really had high hopes for that last Mortal Kombat movie, and it just disappointed so much. So I want to see a really.
I fucking love that movie.
Look, I think it's well made, and I do love the training scene with them. You know, Liu Kang and them training. I do like that stuff, but there were things that I think they should have focused on the Scorpion and Sub Zero plot line for the first movie
Hmm.
and led into more of the other stuff. Anyway, but no, I would love to see because this is another game that I grew up playing, a fighter game that I grew up playing. So yeah, for sure, I would love to see this translated. And I grew up in the time where I actually liked the first Street Fighter movie. Because I was a kid. I didn't. Yeah, no, I don't like it anymore. But as a kid, I was like, "Oh, this is so awesome." John Claude
Guile
Van
is not
Damme.
supposed to be French, people.
No, 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 no. It's a horrible movie, obviously, but it's just one of those movies that caught me at the right time when I was a kid. So I was,
Like you take the most American character and you give
oh
them a freaking Belgium accent. So it's like really, guys. It's
yeah.
like casting was horrible.
Oh, I mean, they completely. Chun Li is horrible. Everybody's horrible. What's his
But
name?
it's the cat factor. But that's the thing.
Yeah,
I wanted them to take out the cat factor. I want them to again go into storylines that are just so interesting,
yeah.
so unique to themselves. Because the yes, it's a fighting game, but all the characters are really well fleshed out.
Oh, and they have a lot of beef with each other that you can really mess with. You can
Yeah,
really play with the yeah.
and have like a season of Ahsoka would be awesome.
There you
Is
go.
that his name? Red hair guy.
Yeah, yeah, Suka. Yeah,
just go away from the Ryu with the Ken storyline. I want to see
sure.
again the other characters have their own limelight. Having a storyline about Vega and
Dowsum,
his huh?
Dowsum,
Yeah. Oh
Dowsing,
shit, that would be awesome.
Dowsum would be awesome. Figure out how he can stretch, how he got that power. Oh,
And
I want to know.
see what other parts he can stretch. But anyways.
Right. That season, you got a different
Yeah.
rating.
All right, let's go in to John's last pick,
Okay.
and that is going to be Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, it deserves
Um,
it.
there's a lot to go. What I would love to happen is to not follow the first game. Like, don't do the first one.
Hmm.
They already did the movie. It didn't work because there was not enough Assassin's Creed moments. It was just sprinkled in just to be an Assassin's Creed movie. What it would work, yes, you follow the storyline, but you don't acknowledge the first movie or the first game. I would seriously
Yeah.
go straight to Black Flag. I would do a
That far ahead,
pirate.
really?
Yeah, I would do a pirate Assassin's Creed. Pirate shows work, in my opinion. It's not something you see not often enough, but well done makes sense. So you have that Assassin's Creed feel and storyline, but you bring us a goddamn pirate show. Or every season is a different Assassin's Creed,
That's
something
what
like
I'm
that.
thinking. That's what
But
I was thinking. More of yeah.
but don't just give us the rehash first game. Give us Syndicate, give us Black Flag, give us
Yes.
Odyssey, give us something that will differentiate from the first bad taste that we have with the
Yeah.
first movie.
Yeah, I actually was talking about with somebody recently, and I think the way you do this is the first season is the setup to finding out that they can go into the Animus. And
Wouldn't
then
that kind of do the same thing though that the movie did, not giving us enough Assassin's Creed?
oh no, you no, what I'm saying is so here's what I was thinking more of. So we start literally from the beginning. So we go back to what is it? Not Odyssey, the other one.
The Egyptian,
Origins. Origins.
yeah, Origins, yeah.
Start in Egypt.
Yeah.
Start in Egypt and come all the way through history. Just come
Okay.
all the way through history. And each season is a different, is a different time period in history. And you just come right through and you tell the whole story of the assassins and the battle they have throughout history and through time periods. And you have one main character for each season as your person that you're going into the Animus with.
And I think that's the future of video game TV shows, especially when a multi-franchise game. Anthology might be the wrong word, but in a sense that
Mm-hmm.
changing perspectives, going through the narratives does work on a TV show. It's something you couldn't have in a movie because unless it was really successful, which none of them were, you had no continuation, so you couldn't evolve the storyline. And if you try to do it in the 2 hour movies, it would be off.
Yeah, no,
Something would work,
that's a
right?
storyline I don't think you can do in 2 hours. Yeah,
Exactly. But having a TV show that you evolve season by season, following the video games, like train of thought of changing up the characters, like Assassin's Creed, and changing up the periods and everything that you're able to follow through, works perfectly.
Well,
Absolutely
I
perfect.
think another way to do it. So in the game, there's the company, and then there's the assassins that are trying to keep the secrets away from each other.
Mm.
So if you maybe play on that, where each season we're getting closer and closer to this mystery of the head of the company that you work for somehow is the ones fighting against you and your family, and you I guess you would start off working for them and sort of see through play through going into the animus and playing through these different time periods in history who the actual bad guys are, and you eventually start working with other people to I
So,
think
so
that's
basically, have a different POV completely than the video games. Having in the world of Assassin's Creed, but through the eyes almost of the bad guys at first, to giving us a completely different perspective.
yeah, right. Yeah. And then
It-
eventually you figure out which side you want to be on, which depending on how they write. I mean, like I said, there would be a little bit of tinkering with the storyline overall, but you have to do that anyway. So,
yeah.
yeah. But I think that would be something they could play with as far as where like the company you work for are the actual bad guys in the end. And we each season gives us a few more pieces of the puzzle that we have to also figure out with him as he's going through these time periods in history and getting all these clues from all, you know what I mean? Something like that.
All right. Well, again, it's a beautiful time to be a gamer and a nerd. Like
Oh
it was a
man.
beautiful time. It this feels like again, Last of Us, even Warcraft, like the evolution of video game, even Mortal Kombat. As much as you kind of had nitpicks, it still felt good to see a video game that is not just
It's the best Mortal
uh,
Kombat movie we've got. I will say
yeah,
that for sure. For sure. Not
for
even a
sure.
question. Yeah.
But it as much as it was a good time to be a comic book geek back in like the 2010s when things are starting to get involved, now is a good
Yeah.
time to be a gamer because they're catching on to how to finally, you know, pin in the right tone and how to evolve the medium, which is TV, into something that just personally falls natural into, and that's video games. So I can guarantee you, next 10 to 15 years, video games is going to be the next comic books. Comic books that are
Oh
big
yeah.
surgeons on popularity and knowing the characters and having my dad say, "Hey, that Iron Man guy." Eventually, we're gonna have someone say, "Hey, that Gears of War guy," that
Hmm.
example. Also, something we didn't talk about. I don't know if you've seen it on Paramount Plus, Halo.
I've watched a couple episodes, but yeah, again, I wasn't a big Halo fan. I was more of a Gears of War fan, so I
Mm.
kind of stayed away from Halo for a long time. But again, I have played a lot of Halo, though. Don't get me wrong, I have
I,
played it. So
I've played maybe the first Halo a couple of times. I'm not a Halo fan. I love the series because it permitted me not to have to play the game to understand the mythology,
sure.
and it's an interesting story that I'm not the best in shooter games. I'm really not. I don't have reflex. My current
Dude,
game
I
I'm
have
playing
not
right
great.
now is F1 Manager. I don't drive. I just manage the goddamn team. Don't ask me to have reflexes. I do not have any. But the story is still interesting. Just don't
Oh,
ask me to
sure.
play it sometimes. So it's fun to have these storylines that you don't have to sit through 24 hours of your life throwing the goddamn controller at the wall because the AI is way too difficult. You just
Yeah.
have an interesting storyline.
Oh, I play every game on easy mode first time through.
Yeah.
I don't even try to mess with it until I know the game well enough that I'll move up. Yeah.
All right. So this pretty much concludes our special edition. Again, the video games that need to be made into TV series. Again, John, I hope you're having a good birthday.
Yes. Happy birthday, John.
You're 1 year older than being an old ass man. All right, we love you, John. It was my honor, my pleasure to step in for you again. Thank you very much, Don, to help me on this episode. Always appreciate, my man.
My
So,
pleasure.
you got a show at 10 o'clock. Tell the people
Yes.
what you're doing right now.
Yeah, guys. So you can find me over at the Multiverse of Geekdom. We are doing our Oscar show tonight. It's our weekly Geekdom show. Josh is going to be the host, and I'm going to be joining him and Jason, and we're going to be talking about some Oscar stuff. So check us out over there.
Yes, sir. And also, if you're not already aware, look on the right-hand side. You see that little logo here? It's Benverse. We
Absolutely.
have decided, and when I mean by we, we're talking about a total of 8 channels decided to group up together and to unite in force in honor of our fallen comrade, Mr. Ben Rayner. He was passionate about what he did and brought us together. So we decided to unite in his honor and to really help out and give you the best content possible. So if you're not already aware, we are on Facebook. Just write in Benverse. We even have a chat apparently.
Yes.
We're an awesome community and we're just growing. So you want the best geek stuff, the best movie stuff, the best TV show stuff, go ahead and check the Benverse. All right. That being said, bonsoir.
Bye, guys.